to FS Brew. FS Brew is the region's first podcast focusing on all things insurance and insurtech here in the UAE and the wider Middle East. I'm Vidya. I'm the founder of Forward, the startup that works with insurance companies to accelerate their go-to-market proposition, digital transformation, and digital marketing initiatives.
And I'm Ranjit Philip. I'm an angel investor and advise and work with startups. These days, I'm working to set up the Middle East business of a cyber insurtech company called Box Insurance.
Ranjit, who are we meeting today?
So we are meeting Frederik Bisbjerg, a very respected international business developer with experience and expertise in digital transformation and business model innovation. He's the executive director of Digitisation at the national health insurance company, Daman, one of the largest insurers in the GCC region, where he oversees the company's digital transformation initiatives. And he's building a digital-first, flexible, and resilient insurance company. In addition to his role at Daman, Frederik holds the position of head of MENA and digital transformation specialist at the Digital Insurer. Previously, he's been the executive vice president for Qatar Insurance Group, the largest composite insurer in the MENA region. Perfect. Frederik, it's great to have you here on the FS Brew podcast. It's wonderful that you agreed, and let's get into it straight away. So, this is a question that we often ask our guests, and the question is, how did you get into insurance? And then we will also want to know a little bit about your role at Daman.
That's a good question, and I'm very opportunistic. So I've never in my life planned to get into insurance. I guess I've just followed what I felt was right at that time. So it's not. I have many colleagues and good friends who have been like, I want to do exactly this, and I want to do it with this company, and then they go die hard after that. I've never done that. I came into insurance when I was working for a company called SOS International, which is basically an emergency assistance third-party administrator. So our owners were insurance companies, and I was running the worldwide operations and trying to manage the international travel and emergency claims. And I set up businesses for the company in China and Thailand. Mm-hmm. And the next step for us was to go to the Middle East.
Right.
And our turnaround time for setting up businesses and the money we've set aside to invest in setting up didn't allow me to find a business to acquire on our own, and simply the time of setting up a business in the Middle East at that time was quite long. So I started looking at potential partners within the insurance industry, and we found Qatar Insurance Company out of Qatar, who had some similar thoughts than we did. So we agreed on creating a joint venture and then acquiring a company out of Dubai. And it was during those discussions that I met the CEO and the CFO and then they gave me a very attractive offer to come to QIC and look after the retail and SME lines end to end for the region. So I moved after I asked my wife, should we stay in Thailand and work, or would you like to go to Doha? And he said, let's go Doha. And at that point in time, honestly, she didn't even know the country Qatar, but she wanted to try something new, and so that's how it happened. And I came in. And the insurance industry is, and you know this better than me, of course, is not the fastest moving industry on the planet. So there was a lot of things to do for QIC and for other insurers, and I just felt that my way of doing things quite pragmatically, and I guess you can even call it short term. I don't like long term projects because I don't believe in it. It takes long to you get the benefits out of them. So that resonated quite well with what I guess you can say the insurance industry needed, at least in the Middle East at that time. Instead of long transformation projects, then smaller projects with a quick return on investment time. So that resonated with them and with me, and yeah, that's what 10, 12 years ago now. So and I'm still here at the region. And you asked for Daman also. in Daman, I'm running the transformation office, the transformation and innovation office. And again, it's kind of the same philosophy. Of course, some of the tools that we're using have changed, but we are still working with people. And transformation is, in my world, a people's game. If people, they don't want to transform, then you're not going to go anywhere, no matter of how fancy systems and projects that you have.
Yeah.
So again, for Daman, the philosophy of doing the right things, but in smaller terms or projects is what we're doing. We are transforming Daman quite heavily, I would say, but it is in steps of 3 to 5 months per project. So it's not like we have a 2.5 year transformation project, and after that it's going to be with a big bang, and then we're out and say, see, we're done. So it is much more incremental, and I guess that's my goal, because it's for me it's very motivating to see these results coming in, and we can demonstrate to the teams that, hey, we said we wanted to do this, and look, we're doing it, and the results that we promised are actually coming. So in that sense, it's also quite motivating to see. Yeah. So I guess that's a brief intro to why I'm here and what I'm doing at Daman.
Very good. That's great. That's great.
Awesome. Awesome. You speak quite extensively on the subject of digital transformation on various social media channels, specific to the insurance domain. Now, what are the top 3 to 5 things that you think an incumbent insurer should consider before they embark on this, journey, really?
And the first thing is that it's not a journey that they should consider, because if they're not already on it in some degree, then they're on the way to get out of the business. But it's a good question. And I guess if it's probably a question of me following up on what we just spoke about, this with the transformation projects and the length of the projects. I think now, especially if it's for the Middle East, my experience is that the Middle East is quite unique in the sense that the management, the board of directors, the owners expect returns within very short time frames. We're talking a year or quarters. So it's very difficult in the Middle East to get a 2 or 3 year project through. And I think you need to plan your transformation programs in that light. And again, do as I do, or as I suggest, right? See, when you do consider where to take your company on the transformation journey, break it down into chunks that are manageable. And you may have to invest in some larger chunks. That could be if you find that your core system must be changed. I've only seen very, very few cases in my history where that has been the case. Normally you can build a layer around it, right? But in very few cases you have to do it simply because the software is no longer supported. Yeah. And that is a longer project. But make sure that you build momentum before you go to that. So when you go and ask for the money for the board of directors, you say, you see, we've been doing these smaller projects for the last 6-12 months, and they're all successful. And now, building on this, we need to do a longer term project. But even when you embark into a longer project, I would strongly advise you keep a parallel track with the so-called quick wins and showing the organization that things are moving. So break it down to smaller, sizable chunks that generate and prove a return on the time spent is probably the most important point. And if you do that, you also risk of not driving the company in the right strategic direction. So even before you start doing that, have a clear North Star, have a clear goal saying this is where we want to be in 3 years or 2 years. So when you do these shorter projects, make sure that they are pointing towards that North Star. So at the end of the day, you are moving the company towards the strategic goal.
Sure.
Yeah, I think you're right about the breaking it into pieces and having a true north for the journey. I think there's a bit of a follow-up. What are sort of the approvals or the challenges that you have seen at the board level? It's almost like, what is the cheat sheet that a digital officer should have in terms of answering the board? And also about getting the culture right. I mean, it's also a mindset, as you mentioned, it's about people as well, right? So what would be sort of your advice to a digital officer?
Yeah, there are many answers to that question, and let me, if you allow me, just do a 5-second advertisement for something I've just started, because I've started a series that I call Frederiks 5, which is videos, obviously 5 minutes on the topics that matters the most in business and digital transformation. And I've started that because actually to mitigate one of the questions that you just gave me, because the board of directors, they do not have in general sufficient knowledge about tech and IT. And that's perfectly understandable, because they have another history, another past, and they have been chosen to be board of directors to look at running the business. However, running the business today is also running technology, running digital. Mm-hmm. So I feel it is our responsibility to educate or give these little bits of the things that you have to know as a C-level member of the board in order to help the CDO make the right decisions. Mm-hmm. Because as a chief digital officer, you come to the board or to your CEO saying, we have these opportunities or problems. I suggest this. What do you suggest? Please work with me on this, because I don't have the single truthful answer. So everybody needs somebody to play ball with, right? And I feel if we do our job in also educating or the decision makers on what we are working on in this space, we will have much better colleagues in making the right decision. So that's one thing that I think is very important. Don't assume that people, they know what you expect them to know. Yeah. So that's one thing. Another thing is, but that's following what we've been talking about so far, because when you go to the board of directors and your C-levels, right, and you have a track record of shorter projects with a clear return on investment, saying, you see, we do this and you can see the results in this financial year, this fiscal year, then it is easier to get things done. So breaking things down into business rationale is, we're doing this because of this and this, and this is what we're getting out of it. I think it's extremely important when you're working with board of directors. Don't assume that they know everything, and give them something very tangible to work with. You can't just come and talk 1 hour about tech architecture revamp, because they wouldn't and they shouldn't be expected to understand it. So put it down into business terms and saying, we're doing this because otherwise this and this, and this is the way out of it.
Yeah. Right. A great piece of advice for the CDOs. But if you look at it from an insurer level itself, I know, like you rightly said, well, when the insurers invest in a piece of digital component, whether it's a new website or a chatbot or a digital marketing activity, they want to see the cash flow right away. Now, education is key, but as an insurer, is there any shift that they can look at, or redesigning themselves that they can look at to constantly focus on that North Star, continue to show the little progress or the small progress? And also another thing, is there any new metrics that they can use in these conversations to their board or as an organization to show that they are making that sort of strides?
That's also a good question. I think one of the things that you need to start looking at is who your competitors are.
Right.
We are so used to looking, across the street to see the next insurance company, and then we're comparing our prices and everything, our service levels and everything to them. And I've heard, I guess, one time too many people saying that, yeah, I know our customer service isn't the best, but look at our competitors, it's much worse. And then they've settled for that. I think it's time that you realize that your competition is not insurance companies, especially when you're looking digital, right? Because where are we spending most of our time when we go online? We are spending most of our time on Google, Netflix, Amazon. We are spending on our smartphones, Apple, right? So this is our expectations as consumers now. We expect the world to be as easy as Apple, as intelligent as Amazon, and as entertaining as Netflix. So when we go from one of these areas and boom,
Comes the insurer.
It's game over, right? And I think that is one of the things that insurance companies has to start thinking of. If you look at Amazon and Google and so forth, you will see that they have all started their own insurance departments or units.
Yeah.
One of my good friends, he's managing director of insurance at Google now. So these giants, they want insurance to happen. And why? Because they need a new source of revenue. If they're going to continue their growth, it's Amazon, Netflix, Google, and this kind, right? If they will have to put, I think it is $1 trillion each of the companies over the next 3 years. You don't get that from selling more of the existing goods or selling more advertising. You get it from getting into financial services, which is insurance and banking. So it will come. For sure it will come.
Yeah.
So, and also on that side, and this is a discussion I've had many times, I do not think that the big tech, they want to have their own insurance companies, but I think they want to sell it as embedded insurance. So we as insurers have to start thinking about how do we make our products or integration attractive enough to offer our insurance as embedded. So this is one thing back to the marketing, to the online. You have to think this is your threat picture for the next couple of years, and this is what you have to think about. For the metrics, and I simply forget the term. That there is a metric who measures the hassle of getting things done. I think it's called effort.
Okay.
I think it's called effort score or something like this.
Score? Okay.
Effort score. It's where you see, and this is also following on what I said about we as consumers are used to the ultra simple interfaces from Amazon and Google and them. So that there is this index where you are measuring how difficult is it, how much effort do your customers have to put in to solve a given task, get a quote, file a claim, or whatever it is. And this is a metric that's really interesting because it only shows how easy your site is to navigate, but it also shows how many clicks or how difficult it is or how automated your processes are. So it's more, it's a good metric for transformation as well, because when you work with transformation, you work with automation and optimization, right? Yeah. So I think that's probably, I think it's called effort score. That's probably something that's worth looking into.
Right. Interesting.
We'll definitely look that up and put it in the show notes as well. I mean, that's a great metric, and I haven't heard that before. And I think boards usually tend to focus on how many hours, how many people are you saving from this automation, and that's kind of a different conversation altogether. And good that you mentioned embedded insurance. And our next question is a little bit tied to that. It's really about smart devices that are kind of entering our lives, and we have seen various sort of fitness trackers getting into tie-ups with insurers, South Africa, Asia, and so on. Wondering if there's an opportunity for that here in the UAE with some of the critical illnesses like diabetes that's prevalent here. And we just noticed that there is a recent Insurtech that seems to have tied up with these Whoop bands. So any thoughts on that? Be good to hear.
I think yes, but it's a long-term project. And it's also worth looking at the demographics or the population and the characteristics of especially the UAE or the Middle East in general, because we are still 60% expats living, or even more in I think 70% in the UAE, isn't it? 70% expats, and the characteristics here is that we are offered the health insurance. If we're talking about health insurance at the moment, right? But typically by our employers. And our employers typically, unless you are within a health insurance company, our employers typically change health insurer year on year or every second year to look for better deals or to keep the competition hot, right? And these trackers and fitness trackers, these are typically products that gives you the benefit of a long-term relationship. So if you start wearing a health tracker today, then you will see the benefits quite fast, but your insurer will see them over a longer period of time, which makes it very difficult to create a good case in the UAE because the buyers, the main buyers of health insurance are switching provider year on year. So the insurer won't have the time to reap the benefits of investing in these devices.
Right.
That being said, I still believe that there is a huge potential. Now you see our Emirati population, right? This is they're under the THICA program that Daman proudly manages. Here it would make good sense because this is a cradle to grave, so to speak, relationship, and here fitness trackers are being used and will be used more simply to improve the overall health of the population. But within health, I don't think for the expat population it's going to be very difficult to create a good business case. You have the apps and you have the fitness trackers and the challenges with the step challenge and all these things that are really good for the society, for the country. But again, it's very difficult to put it into a business case with return on investment, which is what you would need to have in order for an insurer to start investing in it.
Yeah.
And you've seen for cars also. I think that was actually when we first met in 2015 and 16, where we launched in QIC the very first telematics product for vehicles. And that was 2015, and it was a very, very good product, and nobody bought it.
Right.
because the benefits of the product came late after 1 year, right? And you still had this feeling of being somebody was monitoring what you were doing. I feel that we as consumers still have this reluctance. I've heard of some of these telematics products who are coming and being pretty smart now because they're giving you the rewards on a monthly basis. And I think when that launches, then you have a good case, right? Because then you will be motivated, or even on a weekly basis. And this week you've been a good driver. Here's your reward, and I think that would work. But I do feel it's and again, you see even for car insurance that the average expat stays in the UAE for 3.5 years. And again, you would want the expat to don't change insurance company for that period of time in order for you to gain the investment of the telematics product back. So it is difficult to make these kind of business cases in the Middle East, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
Interesting. That's an interesting perspective because the wearables like Whoop and Steppy, I think they want to work on your instant gratification. They want you to show straight away how well you're doing. But then from an insurance perspective, you're right. As of now, I think it's after a year that you start to really reap rewards. Yeah. So, I mean, going back to a core subject, I think, you're passionate about, and you are an expert as well. In your current and your previous roles, you've had significant experience in cloud migrations. Now, tell us some key lessons that you've learned along the way, and what is the role of a two-speed IT in this? And what advice would you give to the IT heads and digital leaders in this region?
Two-speed IT is not that connected to
Right.
Cloud migration. It makes it in some cases it will make it easier if you are in the cloud, but two-speed IT is more the concept that we touched briefly upon in the very beginning, where you basically isolate your core insurance system under connective layers, API layers, and then you can build fast-moving layers on top of this. So you actually have chances to change your business processes or your websites or your apps without having to go into the core system. Right. And of course, if you look at this from a cloud perspective, then you could argue that you keep your core insurance system on premise in your existing server park, and then move the rest to the cloud, because then you would have the opportunity to start moving quite fast with the layers of integration, layers of differentiation and engagement, where you have to work with your business processes for your transformation, and you have to work with your customers for engagement. But the general concept of moving to the cloud, I hope that most of my colleagues are at a point now where we don't have to persuade them to go to the cloud anymore. I think that I don't think we have any good arguments left for why we wouldn't. There have been some arguments about the data has to reside in the UAE, but now we have all the cloud providers in the UAE, so that doesn't work anymore. I think it is probably the fear of losing control that makes people resist going to the cloud. So I have a couple of observations here. The first one, though, is don't expect that you're going to save too much money by moving to the cloud. Yes, you will most likely be saving internal resources because you don't have to have the same people keeping the light on at the servers. But that money goes to keeping the lights on at the hosting center. So I don't think you should don't build a cloud case on saving money because you will be disappointed. You may be able to, but the cloud case should be built on several other topics. First of all, your ability to speed up deliveries of what you're doing is going to increase significantly. And then I guess you can make a case about it if you can go faster to market because you're doing two-speed. You can start getting money out of investments faster and so forth. So maybe you can do it, but it's not the specific cloud move, right? So that's one thing. Another thing is cybersecurity, because think of a normal insurance company. How many people would we have in working dedicated with cybersecurity? 2, 3 maybe. And their responsibility is to keep track of all cybersecurity for 1,200 or 1,500 employees, right? Plus all the customers, plus everything. And that's a big task. If you move to a cloud provider, these 2 or 3 people will not go anywhere because they still need to work with the cloud provider. But the cloud provider has many, many more customers. So chances are that the cloud provider have 50 to 70, maybe even 100 people working full time on cybersecurity. Yeah. Now, I know where I would like to place my money, right? Would you like to have somewhere where you have 3 people working their butts off to keep all this safe, or 70 or 100 people? The cloud providers also have the means of investing much more. They have much more advanced dashboards and monitoring than most companies can buy, simply because it's going to be too expensive to buy these very advanced tools. The cloud providers have them. So in that sense, again, cloud is something that I firmly believe in. In my previous company, when we moved to the cloud, we simply took overnight all operations, everything, and moved out from the server center to the cloud. It took less than 24 hours. And when the employees come back on work after the weekend, they couldn't believe the speed and the simplicity on how everything was working. Mm-hmm. So I would say going to the cloud, for example, you would also have a much better hotline, because again, you'll have more people manning the phones and helping. So these are some of the considerations that you need to take in to think about when you're thinking cloud. And of course, your ability to scale up and down depending on the demand and fluctuations in seasons, right?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I think that's a good point. It's really about the agility that cloud gives to the business, and I love that point about cybersecurity. They're a whole lot more concerned about keeping their cloud safe than maybe a small insurance or a medium-sized insurance company is. That's a good point. And I mean, this is a bit of a subjective question. And you look back, sit back, and just look at the region or maybe globally. Do you see a couple of examples of insurers who have got this, and this being transformation, approach to cloud and customer service, and they're taking the right approach?
Yeah, there is a Singlife out of Singapore. They've done the right things. I think when we're looking at this, I wouldn't generalize, but in more general, I would look at the Far Eastern insurance companies. Mm-hmm. I feel because they've skipped an evolutionary step where the Western and the Middle Eastern insurance company, we've taken step by step by step. If you go to China, you'll see that the population or the youth today, making me old saying, but they've skipped the personal computer, right? They went directly from nothing to the smartphone.
Yeah,
right.
And I feel Asian insurers, they've taken Eastern insurance company. They skipped a evolution in the way that you approach data and how you can use data. And that makes them what can I say? That makes them faster in their approach to doing the right things. Out of the first mini MBA in digital insurance out of out of Hong Kong, Singapore, and still, I think we are on the seventh or eighth cohort now of students, and there is still an overrepresentation of Far East Asian students, and I feel this when we have these very, very life-giving discussions with them, that yes, they struggle also, and they have bureaucracy and cyber problems and IT problems, but their approach to using data is different, and I think that is most likely what the rest of the world has to learn, because the second we really understand the value of real data, then we also understand how we have to change our operating models, our enterprise architecture, and so forth to work with it. And then we're starting to get it right. I think that's where the major change will come from.
Interesting. That brings very beautifully to the next question. I mean, no doubt data is so critical in this whole digital transformation piece. Can you tell us how you use that in your organization in Daman, and the results it has shown for the organization? And if you can share some examples, it'd be great.
We are at a point now where we're crafting a master data management strategy, which is a term that I hope most know, but if not, they should look it up. Master data management is accepting the fact that you have data scattered all over the place, accepting the fact that you don't necessarily have to put all your data every night into a data warehouse and use the data warehouse for your analytics and the way that you're doing things. Master data management works with the concept that is called the golden record, which is a record of pointers to where the single source of truth for each element in a product is. So if your product could be, let's say you're working with the concept of a customer, and the customer have purchase history, phone numbers, mobile, all these things, you won't necessarily have all this information in one place. The golden record will tell you where you have the single source of truth of what product this customer bought the last time, what email address he or she is using, date of birth, and all these things. So when you start changing the data, you also know what only place to change the data, and that becomes very, very, it's vital if you want to use your data for predictive analysis, for fraud, waste, and abuse in the insurance industry, for data mining and all these things. You need to trust your data, and in my experience, even though it is, how can I say this, even though it's less sexy to talk about this, it is the single point of departure for any successful transformation of a company. You have to get your data right. And when you're getting your data right, you don't have to get them 100% right, because that's impossible. But make sure that you know exactly what elements are the most important things you're working with. Like that could be a product, your products, your customers, maybe your locations. These things have to be 90% correct, and then you will start from there and work with your data, so you can start doing machine learning and artificial intelligence and all the smart things. But you can't apply these techniques onto bad data, because then you're not going to get any viable results out of it.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's and of course with our abundance of data in Daman, when COVID hit, we were actually able to use, we have 15 years of health records for the local population. So we were able to predict who was having the greatest likelihood of contracting COVID, and if they got COVID, having complications. So we could actually reach out to them and advise them on specific precautions. So having the right data set and knowing how to use it ethically is exceptionally important. And then you have the classic use cases, but this is for another discussion. But I could also discuss this forever, right? Because when you start looking at artificial intelligence, automated underwriting, machine learning, then you're looking into the problem of explaining why the systems come into the prices that they do. Right? If you use your data for automated underwriting, well, it hasn't come to the Middle East yet. It's in the US at the moment, right? Because you need to be able to explain why did you get that person that price.
Yeah.
If you use advanced artificial intelligence based on 1 million factors, from what they can find online from your history and all these things, then all of a sudden, then you can explain the price, and then you're not allowed to use that. So again, when you start looking at data and working with data, make sure that you keep this explainability so you actually understand what's going on in the black box, which will be complicated once you start looking into advanced machine learning.
Yeah, indeed. That's a lot of meaty stuff there. I think our audience will love that. Now I just want to kind of go a little bit into the future, and there's a lot of talk and buzz, if you will, about Web3 and the concept of a metaverse in which we will operate, we will live, work, and hopefully buy insurance as well. And and you can see more and more digital goods like NFTs are being purchased by people. So now it comes with its own risks. So what do you think is the role of insurers in this space, and will it be used as a risk mitigation tool, and will metaverse just become a distribution channel for insurance? What do you see in the future?
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to be very popular by saying this, but I don't think. but just think of insurance as a product nobody wants to buy.
Yeah, true. True.
Just the opposite of NFTs.
No, because if you buy an insurance product, then in most cases it's because you're forced to get a home loan or car loan, or you have to travel or whatever.
Yeah.
And you buy it and you pay a lot of money up front, and at the end of the day, you pray to the gods that you're never going to use it, right? So it's a product you pay for that you hope you're never going to use. So I don't think we should have too high hopes of us going into augmented reality and bio insurance in our new digital branch, because people won't care, right? So our role is, of course, understanding what new risk, identity theft, and all these things that needs to be covered. This is one huge area of opportunity for insurers. But I think the winners, also as we discussed, the winners will be the ones who understand the concept of embedded insurance. So the winners will be the ones who understand to offer all the others who are selling in the metaverse. And very, very simple, just a flick of a switch thing, and then there is an added-on insurance in the product that they're selling. And that's where I would suggest you should focus your energy on understanding how do we create a modular architecture, how do we create modular underwriting modules, so my customers or distribution channels would be able to create your own products and offer to their customers. In again the least at the least path of resistance, right? This effort score, again, as simple as possible, both for the end users, but even more so for the ones that you would like to work with as distributors, because they will have millions of opportunities, because the metaverse is by definition worldwide, right? Yeah. So you wouldn't care if the insurance company is next door or on the other side of the planet, which increases your competition significantly. Yeah. And therefore, you have to be as simple to work with as possible.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, and you can see a few companies like Etherisk and I think Nexus Mutual, etc., taking some strides in this. So it'll be interesting to watch how this develops.
So coming back to the reality here in the region, let's talk about the Insurtechs that is there here in and around the region. What has been your outlook on partnerships with these Insurtechs, and how has it evolved over time? Are there any active projects that you're working with them that you'd like to share with our audience?
I think on the onset, I think there is, and I'm very happy for this, I think there is a wide range of very, very promising Insurtechs in the region.
Right.
I'm working with them as much as I can.
Right.
I think my biggest learning is that for incumbents and for Insurtechs, the biggest problem that we have is figuring out how to work together. In Insurtechs, they are under pressure to get results done fast. They need to get new business so they can secure the next round of funding, or even just have money to pay the salaries.
True.
So they are really in a hurry to get things done, and they're also a very small, agile, and nimble company in most cases. So they can move fast, right? They can put together a contract and send it overnight, and that's it. Whereas incumbent insurers is completely the opposite. It takes us 12 months to create a contract and go through a procurement thing. So This is a huge mismatch, right? Because it's not like insurance companies don't want to work with Insurtechs. There's a lot of opportunities, but we in many cases see these problems where the Insurtechs, they get fed up simply. No way it's going to happen because it takes too long. And the insurers, on the other hand, also say we can't work with them because they're pressure too much. They don't understand us.
Yeah.
So I think this is one of the things that both parties have to address in the future. Insurtechs have to understand that you can't do this with incumbents. It's just not possible. And incumbents have to understand if we want to move ahead, we also have to change our rules a little. So now, what we've done, we spent a lot of time, I have to say, with our first real Insurtech, which was Okadoc for our digital health journey. And thanks to them and thanks to what we did together, we now have a quite effective modus operandi for how would we onboard new Insurtechs. And so I guess you can say that, I'm not saying that they were the guinea pig, Okadoc, but we spent a lot of time figuring out how do we scale our relationship with them, how do we make sure that we not only create a successful pilot with them, but also scale it and roll it out to all our 2.5 million members. And that's succeeding now. We have the appointment book, we have the doctor search, and we have a lot of very exciting things coming up with Okadoc. And thanks to them and that strong relationship we have with them, it's also now open up for us to onboard other Insurtechs that I can tell about a little later. But now our process, because of this first pilot, has become much simpler. We understand how to put together our systems in a more modular way, how to work with them, how to, in the beginning, also align expectations. Saying, we like to do this, these are the things we have to go through because we have our own compliance and internal audit and regulations we have to follow. We are a financial institution. So this is the time frame, and you just have to plan for that in our relationship. And to me, that works. So I have high hopes for the future of collaboration between insurers and Insurtechs.
Very good. That's great. And I guess some of these things like open insurance, APIs, etc., will also speed this whole collaboration piece up. But Insurtechs have to always remember that you guys are answerable to the regulator, and it's not an easy task, and you have capital of the shareholders that you need to protect. So these are big things. As we kind of come towards the end, I mean, by the way, this has been smashing. I mean, I wish we could carry on, but
yeah, totally.
There's a message we often ask is there a message that you would like to send to anyone? Is there a billboard that you would like to have on Sheikh Zayed Road, which has your message?
I think it's a couple of things, right? And we've touched upon it quite a few times. The first is the digital transformation is working with humans and change of habits. And this is the first ingredients in this magic source of success. You have to understand that. Don't listen to all the low-code, no-code. Don't listen to all these vendors who promise the world, right? Because you can buy all the systems that you want, but if people don't want to change to start using them, just forget it.
Yeah.
So that's one thing I think is exceptionally important for everybody that works in transformation to remember. And the other thing is also we discussed many times is this: break whatever you do down into measurable chunks. I would even claim that if somebody proposes a 6-month project, they haven't done their homework well enough. Break it down to 2 projects with measurable results of 3 months, right? So progress this way, because when you progress this way, you not only motivate the people who work on the projects because they can see after 3 months, hey, it's already working, but you also start changing the culture and start creating a can-do culture in the organization because they can see, hey, it's actually working and it doesn't take years. And again, your sponsors, the management, the board of directors, they will see that, hey, it's working. So they will continue funding what you're doing. So I think these are the 2 things that I would say we're working with people and changes of habit and break things down into small measurable chunks. That's probably the 2 most important things when you work in business transformation.
Fantastic.
Awesome. Great pieces of advice, wise words.
And
thank you.
with that, probably we should say thank you very much for being here at FS Brew, and we really enjoyed this conversation.
Thank you.
Likewise, my pleasure, my pleasure. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Very good.